So you remember how the Jeep was ready for paint? Well... here's the Jeep, very much as you saw it last time, but with more flash rust and some more miles on it. So far it has claimed the lives of a few of my bushes out front. But overall, it's about the same as it was. I've noticed a few little waves. There's some waves here. I've been trying to get this as close to metal finished as possible, which means, you know, so everything's perfect just in the metal even before you paint. But since this was the very first metal fab project I've ever started, that was clearly never going to happen. So before I paint it, because the kid wants it painted, I know some people said just clear coat it, leave it bare metal, and I think it looks really cool, but my wife doesn't, and the kid wants it painted. So we're going to do that. But to make sure it looks a little less crummy when it's painted, I got this body filler. It comes with a thing and then some hardener. So I mixed this with some of this in some proportion, mix it all up, slather it on, let it dry, and then sand it so it gets all the low wavy parts filled in, like all these little wavy bits, which honestly might have been fine with some high build primer or something, but other parts of it probably could have used the filler. So it's pretty close in the metal. I'm going to do the filler, sand it smooth, then we'll think about painting it. Okay? I promise. I really promise. Fingers crossed means you're lying. So I'm not going to worry about the hood or the back or a lot of it, but I need to get some of it disassembled here. So that's step one. Oop, that out of my way. I'm going to get this out of here. I should probably get the battery out of there too, because if I bump it, it's gonna go running on me. So let's see, where should we start? How about along this? Yeah, that looks wavy. So obviously I'm going to have to clear all this junk off. Okay, I got a test area cleaned off. And here's what I mean. I was kind of using the angle grinder a while back, and I got some tiny ripples. I can barely feel them, but I can feel them a tiny bit. Just hoping this filler will help me fill those in so they won't show up. And some high build primer, a couple layers of that might have filled it in. But I'll never miss an opportunity to practice something. This is a good practice to use the skim coat filler. Okay, and here's where I'm going to mix it. You want to add some of this and some of this, and then mix it up. I think they say you take this and you put a big blotch on, and then you take this and put one row across it, and then mix it all up. You're supposed to have a clean, flat surface. I don't have that, but I have this. This is about as close as it's going to get. I wiped it down with acetone. And then they had these like plastic paddles. Well, I don't have any of those either. So I'm going to use this, which I dug out of the garbage can. My old dust pan, which I replaced with a 3D printed one. But it's kind of flat and kind of flexible. Whoops. Well, that broke. We're going to use this. This is kind of in the way. There we go. That hot glue holds pretty good, but it doesn't hold pretty great. Okay, close enough. I'm going to use this as my paddle to mix and to slather it on and smooth. These little edges are going to give me a problem. Come on, knife, help me out. There, no more problem. Let's break into this, and showing why every knife I have is broken. Let's pop this open, and what do we got? Ew, that's gross. Alright, well, any day now. We'll just start with that much. Now let's take this, which is the hardener, I believe. Like I said, you go splur, kind of one strip across it, and now mix it till it's green. With this, fold it into itself. I do not know what I'm doing. This is the very first time I've ever seen this junk. I'm just kind of following what the instructions said. And by instructions, I mean video online. Because I don't know if it came with instructions. If it did, I definitely lost them by now. Blue and yellow definitely mixing to form a greenish color. Turns out my elementary school art teacher was right. Wow, I'm going to have to print a bunch more of these dust collector thingies. These make great paint mixers. First time I've ever applied this stuff to anything. Just going to slather it on. Like that. Oh, I don't really want to get the inside though. This is kind of like icing on a cake. And you know, I don't really want the stuff very thick. I would like to leave some of the metal looking kind of like metal. if that makes sense. I also heard that you definitely want to leave the edges of everything metal. You don't want to build an edge with filler, because the filler edge will be more prone to chipping. Okay, I feel like this is starting to harden. We're going to leave it sit. Then we're going to let it totally dry. Ew, that's gross. Gonna leave it dry, and then I'm going to try to sand it. I don't have anything to block sand with, but I'll figure something out. Okay, here's what I figured out. I got this kind of block, and I got some sandpaper. This is 80 grit. It's not really designed for this, but I'm going to use what I have until I break into more stuff. I got lots of boxes of sandpaper over there, but this was on top of the stack. So I'm going to try this and see what happens. So obviously my sharply in focus friend is realizing that, one, a disc is not a great sanding pad, and a short sanding block is not ideal, although it does kind of work for this narrow little thing. You see in a lot of videos people using large, long sanding blocks. There's a reason. Yeah, get a longer one. Eventually I start using a plank of wood with sandpaper wrapped around it. That kind of works. There's a thing that I'm noticing. If you see a bunch of people, say professionals, and they're all doing the same task, and they're all using sort of the same set of tools, there's probably a reason. Okay, couple things learned. One, this stuff sands very easily. It's very nice. It sets up quickly. It wipes on nice. It sands easily. Two, super messy. Wow. Three, this is going to take forever. So I'm probably just going to do a few key spots and then get on with it. And I'm not going to do them on camera, because that's going to take hours and hours, and it's just going to be me sanding. You don't want to see that. That's boring. I don't want to do that, so I know you don't want to see it. We'll come back when it's paint time. So 500 more hours of sanding. So much block sanding. What do you think?
I think it's fun sanding. I'm getting it all over me though.
You think it's fun sanding?
Well.
What's wrong with you? And now more sanding. So I wasn't kidding about how long this thing takes. Here's what you do. You apply filler, let it cure, block sand. Find all the places you screwed up applying the filler, reapply more filler, block sand. Repeat until you're done. It takes forever. Then realize there's a body line that you need to be there that you filled with filler, and now you have to use a little cutting disc on a die grinder to make it show up again. That was my mistake. Live and learn, and then shoot sparks everywhere. And then get out your compressed air and blow dust everywhere. If you're smart, you'll wear a respirator for this. No one's ever accused me of being smart, so I coughed for the next couple of days. I then continue this process by taking the thing apart, which turned out to be a lot harder and slightly more dangerous than I thought. Nearly got bonked in the head there. Hooray, it stopped raining. Let's spray a bunch more water in the driveway. But before I paint, I gotta clean the thing up. So here I have the steering parts. One's metal, one's plastic. So I got this kind of primer. The white stuff is a primer. It's supposed to be for all surfaces, really difficult to bond to surfaces, including plastic. You still want to sand, supposedly, sand the plastic to make the rough surface, but it's supposed to work. Just don't hold it as far away as I'm holding it here. It seems like I'm getting a real grainy texture. Turns out that's because I'm holding it too far away on such a hot day that the paint is actually drying in the air. So that wasn't cool. It sure looks terrible now once it's dried. But I painted it black, so it's a little harder to see. Tried to take a little better care doing the body, but I only had enough paint to really paint the visible parts. First primer, then black paint over the primer. We were only painting some of this, but it still took surprisingly large amounts of time and paint. Because you can't just paint it black. You gotta paint it lightly black, and then wait for that surface thing to dry, but not too far, and then paint another thin layer over it, and paint 2 or 3 layers over it, and then realize you missed a spot multiple layers ago. So you got to paint that section in a few thin coats, a few minutes apart, let it dry to like surface dry or whatever. You can't wait 4 hours and then paint on another thick coat with enamel, because that really screws it up. A lot of painting and then waiting for paint to dry, which is very thrilling, I might add. More layers and waiting for paint to dry. It takes forever. You'll see on the steel body I used black primer, not the white primer I used before. There's a couple reasons for this. I'm using a steel specific primer for this. Automotive primer, I think it's called. And it's black. And I'm doing it black. You can get different colors of primer and paint. But I'm doing it black because black will cover up the steel. So if I can see steel poking through, it means there's not enough primer there. I didn't get good coverage. And then I'm going to paint it with red, which is different from black. Because if I did like all of it in clear, for example, what if I miss a spot? I wouldn't know. I would have no idea. And here's the red going on, and as the red went on, man, it started looking cool. Cooler and cooler and cooler. It looked great, fantastic, until shortly thereafter when it started drying and I realized how much I suck at spraying paint. Also, I made the major mistake of using normal red Rust-Oleum. I should have used Rust-Oleum automotive paint, which supposedly dries faster and harder. It has a little different look. I kind of like the normal enamel look, but I don't know. It dried. It says like recoat within 1 hour or after 48 hours. Well, definitely within 1 hour. I'd say probably within a half hour you'd be better off. Or after 7 days. Not 2 days, 7. Because like 2 days later I sprayed another coat and I started getting crinkling and junk, which means he didn't let it sit long enough. And I looked this up online, and this is true. Everyone complains about normal Rust-Oleum not getting hard. It's like a thing. Like, and then everyone, EPA has screwed up our paint, and then other people saying, just learn how to paint, idiot. And yeah, like normal, the internet was not helpful in the least. But I did let it sit for like a week, and then it's okay. But there's still like being tacky for 2 days. There's a lot of junk that gets in that paint. And yeah, all the other stuff, like the crinkling and runs, because I'm not good at painting. But that's the way it goes. You know, I'm trying to use a spray can when I really should be using like a paint booth and a paint gun. It's not like they're expensive. Spray paint's not cheap. And they card you at the thing. They're like, are you sure you're an adult even though you have a beard and you drove yourself? You're not going to be going and huffing this paint and spray painting graffiti, are you? Like, no. If I was doing graffiti, I wouldn't just use red and then use primer, idiot. But anyways, you want a tip? If you're getting your wife to help you spray paint, suggest she removes her wedding ring before we started. That would have been good. Also, don't paint right before a family photo shoot or you'll end up bathing in acetone so your hands don't look like you just murdered a bunch of people and covered their blood all over. I mean, that's a hypothetical. That didn't really happen. I really like how it's looking. Slight problem. I got it all over my hands, so I've been washing my hands in acetone. My chemical engineer friend tells me it's not going to give me cancer, which is good because I didn't wait for him to respond and I started doing it anyway. And by hands, I mean all the way up my arms. I did save the wedding ring from most of the chaos though, so that's good. Marriage saved! Okay, so here's a little shot of like what I'm doing for fixtures. This is the piece with the first coat on there, dried off. I 3D printed a bunch of stuff. So this is like a surround and then the lens. I designed these on Fusion 360. You can see I did it with like a taper. The reason I did this taper is easy to print without support material or anything. So it looks nice. I also printed in a screw hole. You see 4 locations here for screws. And then I printed this with kind of the same reverse of this. You can see. I can't explain, but you have eyes. You know. But I don't have fingers. So the idea is put this down, put a screw up through the hole, pulling this down, which holds the other thing down. On a side note, I use like the infill to give me squares. Kind of like if you look in a headlight, you know, you kind of see that pattern in the headlights. Kinda. Of course, there isn't going to be any light going through these, so that's kind of a stupid detail. But I did it anyway, because why not? So perhaps I should put these on, test fitting and such, because I'm not done with the paint. Because, spoiler alert, the paint looks really bad. I don't know what I did wrong. Well, actually, that's a lie. I know many, many things I did wrong. So there's going to have to be a lot of paint repair. I thought I'd have it done today, but I don't. Close enough for a test fitting. I also did these tiny, tiny versions for the indicators. And I did this in clear also, or translucent. It seems like all the pictures I saw of old Jeeps, the indicator lenses were clear. They must have had yellow bulbs or something. I don't know. So I did what I saw in the pictures. There, that's kind of like lights. It looks very surprised. Ah! This screw is longer and this is thick. So if I try to put it through, it's going to poke through the top. Might have to go to the hardware store and get some new screws. Well, there. We'll pretend they're on. Not really thrilled about this metallic-y stuff I use here. This is atomic filament. First time trying atomic filament. I like it. It strings a lot, but I like it. I don't really like this, so I might sand that down and chrome spray it. I don't know. But there. You saw some Jeep painting. The fixtures, they're attachable for the most part. Lots of paint fixing and stuff to do. Thing I learned, normal Rust-Oleum, it takes forever to dry. Like, well, it dries right away. It dries, but it's all, like, not very hard. This is hard, because it's been, like, 5 days. But, yeah, I don't really like the finish. And I did a bad job with the painting, so lots of reworking to do. But almost done. Almost. You know what they say? The first 90% of a project takes 90% of the time. The last 10% of the project takes another 90% of the time. So, yeah, I'm in that zone right now. I thought I'd have the Jeep done in this video, but we will have it done in the next video. I promise. Fingers crossed.